Morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Enablement Brew. I am Carly Lehner.
And I'm Malvina, and we're so excited you're joining us for yet another episode. And this is our episode after we did the Halloween special, so
I
I'm quite
know, one of
excited.
my favorites.
I loved that episode. So good. So much fun as well.
Yeah, I love having friends come onto the show. So we'll definitely have more enablement practitioners come on, in the coming episodes because I thought that was really nice to kind of share some laughs
I
and
know.
commiserate a bit.
I know. And it's so funny, a lot of the times, like we're thinking things and we realize, hey, these people also think like us.
We're
They
not the
also
only
share the
ones.
same struggles. So it's nice. It's nice to share ideas and experiences with others and realize you're not alone.
I think that's like the most important thing in enablement. Like when I started kind of like networking with an enablement, and realizing I wasn't alone, it was like kind of what helped me like meet more people was like I need to like make sure I have like a strong network because that's like your mental sanity sometimes, which we were going to talk about burnout in this episode. Like it's really helpful to have people outside of your own company who know what you do and understand the challenges you have. And when I kind of realized that, like it made a world of a difference in my career. So it's just so nice to have enablement
I
friends.
know, I know. It makes all the difference. All
Yeah.
right. I have a mug. It looks a little bit like a candy cane. I think I'm subconsciously getting ready for Christmas, but I'm drinking coffee that I actually made not long ago, so it's still nice and warm, which is a miracle. What about you?
Wow. Okay, so I have our enablement brew mug. I have a coffee. I'm almost done with it. But it's my first coffee of the day. So I did yoga this morning and they have tea there. So my first cup of caffeine was like a green chai this morning. And then I got home and made this coffee like not that long ago, which is kind of
You go,
wild.
girl. You're doing yoga in the morning.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm really trying. I got a standing desk and a treadmill for under my desk. I walked 7 miles a couple days ago whilst working. Um, so that's my goal. I'm like starting New Year's resolutions early. It's like
I
remember our
remember
resolution
when we
to go
recorded
back.
an episode in
Yeah,
January, and I
yeah.
said,
And I was
so
like,
good
I
at
want to
sticking.
work out. Never did it.
Never did.
I'm starting it
Peloton, do
early.
you still have it?
We still do have the Peloton, and I don't know when Evan and I have last used that thing. Probably should sell it.
Okay, but you're approaching the new year
Exactly.
early and you're getting
Yes.
prepared.
Yes. So yeah, that's what's in my mug today. With some coffee.
Oh my gosh. So I picked up my coffee. I opened my laptop as I do, went to check my emails, and a new report popped up in my email. And I think we spoke about this before. We do like to go through them and see what's happening in the enablement world. So this one was actually by
Yep.
Sales Enablement Pro, and I think it's their November report, which talks all about career growth, career pathing, compensation, and burnout in sales enablement. And I said, this is definitely a great topic to discuss today, in
Yes.
particular around compensation, gender disparity, and the dreaded B word, which is burnout.
Yes. It is it's that time of year for burnout. It is the end of the year. It's like you're just slowly getting to the holidays. It's Thanksgiving next week in the US. So you're just like, get me to that turkey and stuffing. And then you come back and then it's like almost to the holidays. And so yeah, burnout is definitely a thing right now. But what I always like about these reports is the compensation, like benchmarking that we get. So Sales Enablement Pro has this report. The Sales Enablement Collective has one as well. And when I'm looking to hire or I'm just looking to benchmark myself, so I always look at these reports when I want to see how I'm, compensated, but also like how my team is compensated according to the market. And this one with Sales Enablement Pro, Sales Enablement Collective releases one. I'm sure there are others, but I think looking to the enablement industry for the benchmarking is really helpful because I'm actually not sure how well benchmarking is represented and how much data there is in like the larger benchmarking services out there that maybe like our people teams might be using. So I always get really excited when I see a compensation report come out. So yeah, when I saw that hit my inbox, I clicked download report as well.
So I fell off my chair when I read one particular thing in this report. For those of you who have it, page 5, I'm reading, for managers and senior managers, the disparity between men's and women's salaries is
What do we think it is,
seven,
everyone? Everyone think of the number.
7K.
$70,000. 70.
That's huge.
That is huge. And I actually, I probably should look at what the disparity is in other roles, but for an industry or for, yeah, an industry that feels very female heavy, this is extremely disappointing to see that there's a lot of representation of women in enablement. But men are making $70,000 more for the same roles that we're doing. And I like you fell off my chair.
I can't believe it. I mean, it's not just a gap. $70,000 is a whole nother salary. Someone else, has $70,000 as a salary. And that's the gap here.
Mm-hmm.
That is ludicrous. And the other thing that I found shocking is the majority of the respondents, 61%, are female, while less than half, 38%, are male. So, how does this work? Why is this happening?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought so that stuck out to me. And then also like the salary ranges across the different roles. So an enablement coordinator, an entry-level enablement position is making $70,000 annually on average, which I'm going to age myself. Like when I started working back in the day, my first job, my entry-level salary was nowhere close to $70,000. So I find that so like kind of hard to wrap my mind around that an entry-level salary nowadays is 70,000. But I mean, when I think about our entry-level employees that we hire on our revenue team, it's about right. So, but then the VP of enablement, the range there was 220K to 320K.
Crazy.
Crazy. I don't think we're going to see that in the UK.
No, and this is the other thing, I feel like the disparity between salaries in EMEA as a whole versus the US, it's huge.
It is huge.
Sometimes we're almost talking double. It's not a difference of 5, 10, 15K. It could be a difference of almost half an entire salary.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember I was hiring for an enablement manager role when I was at a different company. I was a head of enablement at the time. And I was interviewing someone and she's like, I'm looking for 125 to 150K. And I was like, excuse me, my salary converted to US dollars is nowhere close to that. Like, and I'm the head of, like, you would be reporting to me. And like you would make a significant amount more than me. So when I kind of realized the disparity across EMEA to US, I again was kind of floored. And my boss always says, well, just move back to the US. Like, why do you live in the UK? Because It makes me happy. I
And you
love
just, and
it.
you're living in the Cotswolds now. You have the green.
Yeah, exactly. So like I don't really want to move back to the US, but just because I'm, in the UK doesn't mean the type of work that I'm doing or any of us are doing is any less impactful or less meaningful to an
Yeah.
organization because we are in EMEA versus the US. The types of companies we are working for are the same. We're selling to US companies. In fact, I work for a US company. So it is very interesting to see those differences. But that $70,000 difference between
Yeah.
men and women at
And
a
you will
manager
know,
and a senior manager level.
yeah. And you will notice that, probably that candidate that you were interviewing, that's not a one-off. That's not a
No,
one-off person coming in and making what could be a ludicrous ask in our eyes, but actually she's very representative of what's happening, across the pond, right? Just
yeah,
salaries are through the roof and expectations are also through the roof. I also I did grow up in New York. Obviously, I've been in London for a very long time now. And I'm curious what you think, Carly. But do you think life is a lot more expensive when you compare London and New York? Because whenever we get into these conversations, it's like, but life is a lot more expensive. There's so much more spending and so many more things you have to account for when you live in the US versus when you are in EMEA. And then I think, okay, yeah, like New York, we're talking about like big cities. I think the same applies for the likes of, I don't know, Chicago, right? Or
San
Los
Francisco.
Angeles. Like it's
Yeah.
going to be expensive, but is it that much more expensive than London in particular, which is a big city, right? I get it. You move somewhere else in EMEA, of course, things are less expensive. But when I compare the two, which in my eyes is a little bit apples to apples, I'm still shocked.
Yeah. So, especially now, I'm hearing horror stories in London about people trying to get apartments and flats, we call them over here, needing 10 months rent upfront guaranteed, given the mortgage crisis that we're facing in this country. Landlords are raising rents like crazy because of this cost of living crisis that we have. And so London is, I would say, I don't have the actual data to back it up, but it is very expensive at the moment. And getting an apartment and cost of living is not great. And so I think to say that, oh, London, living in London is cheaper than, major metropolitan America, therefore your salary should be half is, I think, ludicrous. Like, how many times can we say ludicrous in this podcast? Like, there's a lot of crazy here.
That is going to be the hashtag ludicrous. And when we talk about gender disparity, we said 70K, $70,000 between men and women's salaries. I know you're doing some interesting work at the moment.
Yeah.
And
So Andela is a founding member of this coalition called Gender Fair. And it's a coalition for gender fairness and equality within organizations. And so companies can take the gender fair assessment. It's like $1,000. It takes like 30 minutes. And based on how you score, you could be gender certified. You could, be like a named like gender fair corporation. And then there's also, recommendations of how to improve your score. And that's the thing, like it is always going to be an evolving conversation and no organization is going to be perfect. And even if you do become gender fair certified, there's still going to be things that you can do um, to work towards gender fairness. And so the thing that I really like about the Gender Fair Coalition is that it's using procurement as the way to drive gender equality. So we as businesses buy a lot of other services from other businesses. And so if we can make decisions with our wallets, our corporate wallets, to work with other companies who are gender fair or working towards gender fairness, then that's where we can really make a lot of meaningful change. And so I've really enjoyed kind of getting involved with this. And we have a couple other, partners like Logitech and Zoetis were, founding members as well. And I think it's a really important initiative for companies to, DE&I is has always been kind of a thing, especially in the last like 5 to 10 years, but really focusing on gender equality, I think is super, super important. And when you see stats like $70,000 difference in salary for the same role, like that shouldn't be happening.
Do you think companies are willing to participate, right? Because in a certain sense, it requires you to get a little bit naked
Yeah.
to reveal what you have. And I'm just wondering if, we're reading this in a report today, and clearly it's happening. We know it's happening.
Yep.
How likely are companies to actually almost, take part in this report, take part in this survey? I'm sure there's an element of fear, right? Because if something like this is happening, you have to disclose it.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I was on a webinar recently, a couple weeks ago, speaking with Gender Fair and Amy Cross, their co-founder and CEO, and we were kind of talking about this. And it's the right thing to do, but if you as a business aren't motivated by the moral standpoint of gender fairness, there is a financial impact to gender equality. A McKinsey study out in 2020, I think it was, found that companies who had over 33%, over a third of their executive team as females, performed markedly better than those who did not. And same thing in sales organizations. When there's gender equality and fairness in sales organizations, quota attainment goes up, average deal sizes go up. And so as a business, it's really hard to say like, ooh, we're not doing things the way we should be, or like we have room for improvement. But I think that's okay. Like that's what we're looking for. I think as a society is, hey, it's okay to not be perfect as long as you are working to improve things. And I think that the vulnerability there, I think is what is super important. And if you think about it from a consumer lens as well, Gen Z and millennials very much take social issues into consideration when making purchases. They want to buy from companies that have that like social justice mindset. And so I think it's like I would much rather buy from someone who's like, hey, I know we're not perfect here, but we're working on it, and I think that's my challenge to companies who are scared to do it. It's like, if you're scared to go to the doctor and you just don't go, like, doesn't mean you're not going to have any health issues one day. Like, you might still have a health issue. So you kind of have to face these things head on.
Yeah. I just can't believe we're still having this conversation in 2022. We're going to have this conversation next year.
Well, and the scary thing is the pandemic set back gender equality by 50 years. By an entire generation, gender equality was set back because of COVID. So if we want to reduce that, like bold action needs to be taken as a result of that stat, which like horrifies me. So yeah, I think we're seeing that. I can't believe we're seeing it in enablement, considering how strong female representation we have in our industry. But yet the 38% male population in enablement are earning significant amounts more than us women, which is disappointing.
It's also crazy when you mentioned, the setbacks with COVID. And as you know, I have 2 kids, and I remember going away on maternity leave both times thinking, I'm so excited. We're going to have a baby. I'm going to have a child. First time it was, Teddy, my son. Then I was excited that I was going to have a daughter. And, call me crazy, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I asked myself, the question, I'm going to be away now for a year. Where does
Mhm.
this put me in relation to my peers or others that I work closely with when I come back? Does
Yeah.
that mean that I'm basically a full year kind of, behind them because I'm not there? How is that going to impact, my salary, my progression? I think that's always a fear for women who want to, or males, right? Like who want to start families, but you're going to be gone for a full year. For me as a woman, that was just a scary thought because you think, okay, what am I going to miss out on? What am I not going to be considered for?
Yeah.
Um, if there's a promotion, am I even going to be in that pool, even though I worked my ass off the previous year, right? So
Yeah.
you're just thinking about all those things. And I wonder if how much motherhood, as sad and true as it is, like also plays a part in all this. I don't know.
I think it absolutely does. I don't know like the stats and the data around it, but I think it's pretty common to see especially now like with childcare being so expensive, like um I think you're seeing this a lot in the US given the lack of
Yeah.
services and whatnot for mothers in the US. Childcare is so expensive. Um a lot of families are like, well, I could spend most of my salary paying someone else to watch my kid, or I could just not work and just watch my kid. And so they're making those types of decisions. And it's like, what if the mom wants to have a career as well? Right. And so those are the things that as a part of like this gender conversation, like so much that goes into reaching towards gender equality and gender fairness. Um, but yeah, the motherhood thing is, I think, has always been a conversation, but I think it's even more important now with, parental leave and
Yeah.
childcare services and things like that.
And I've had, we talked about like the starting salary, right? And I've had conversations with people who maybe are just on, the beginning or in the beginning of their enablement journey that have children. And literally, it's a question of, do I go to work because I'm practically working every single month just to pay the nursery because nursery fees are so ridiculously expensive? Or do I stay at home, look after my child, and then just, be reliant on my partner or on my husband?
Yep.
And it is such a hard trade-off. You're basically choosing one over another
Yeah.
really on the basis of nursery fees.
Childcare. I
Childcare.
know. Yeah. I know. So there's a lot to work on with gender fairness. But the other thing in this report that they talk about, so we kind of talked about compensation, we talked about gender, was burnout. And we mentioned it at the beginning of the episode, but burnout, that dreaded B word, I think is what you said. Like it's it's prevalent. And I think that working from home has an impact on people, even if we're used to it and a lot of us prefer it. It those lines between work and life are blurred a bit. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about whole burnout?
So 51% reportedly have experienced a high level of burnout this year. That's half of all respondents who took part in the survey. 51% said that they found it extremely challenging. And the question was, how would you rate the level of challenge that burnout has presented to your performance? 51% said extremely challenging. Only 19% said not challenging. I think the burnout, and we talked about this in previous episodes, because enablement wears so many hats, is part or takes part in so many areas of the business, tries to fix so many things that are broken, tries to put that band-aid on things that maybe aren't perfect, but let's just see what we can do in the short term to fix things. That's a lot. And then you think,
Yeah.
is it just my job, or am I kind of doing everyone else's job as well? Right. Um, that number is high, but I wonder if we look at this report at the end of next year, is it going to go up? Because maybe I'm a little bit pessimistic, but I don't see things getting easier and I don't see things slowing down, especially given the economy and the current climate we're living in. We're going to have to do a lot more with a lot less. And I don't see burnout going away.
Yeah, I don't either, unfortunately. Um and so in this report it says, what are the key causes of burnout for sales enablement practitioners? And you kind of named a lot of them. Unclear role and success metrics. Okay, that I feel like that is enablement. Understaffing and inefficient resources. Yep, check. Um, Lack of leadership buy-in. That absolutely can play a role, even if you have leadership buy-in, like which we have in Andela, and I absolutely love and appreciate. It can still be incredibly frustrating to try and push, like, hey guys, listening to calls is super important, and like you should be coaching your teams, and then it just never happens.
Yeah.
Um, Balancing too many projects at once.
Yeah.
Yep. Changing priorities, lack of recognition. Yeah, these all make sense. And this is something that enablement faces
Yeah.
quite a bit. Yeah, and I unfortunately agree with you that I don't think this is going to get better. So I guess what do we do? What do we do to overcome the burnout? Because we can't have 81% of respondents saying that burnout was somewhat or extremely challenging for them this year.
Yeah.
Like we can't have that in enablement. We're going to be so inefficient as an industry. And if that's the case, so how do you approach burnout?
Ooh, I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this question because I also have my own unhealthy habits that I try to deal with, right? Whether it's working till really late, right? Having that urge first thing in the morning and like before bed to check my emails and find myself replying at 11:30 or
Oh,
midnight,
God.
right? Seeing that, oh, if we do this, it's going to be awesome. It's going to have this huge impact and we definitely need this. And quickly realizing that maybe I took on a lot more than I can chew
Yeah.
in a given time. I think for 2023, one of my key things starting now is, that 80-20 rule, right? What 20% of my efforts can really have 80% of the biggest impact? It can't be everything. So
Yep.
choose, maybe there's 10 projects, 20% of those. That's all I'm going to action because
Hmm.
those are the ones that are going to have the biggest impact. I think it boils down to prioritizing and actually being open and honest about your bandwidth as well, right? Because I think we struggle saying no. We struggle saying it's too much, it's not the right time, there's other priorities. But I think that has to be a conversation that takes place often. How much
Yes.
bandwidth do you actually have? And realistically, what you can take on, because it
Hmm.
can't be everything.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, that's like a very common discussion
And
point
do
within
yoga.
enablement. Yes, do yoga. I've been journaling. I find that to be super helpful. So like I have like a wellness journal in the morning. It's like, what are you looking forward to today? Like, what's your affirmation? And then in the evening, it's like, what are you grateful for? And who made your day
Oh,
special? And then rate your day. My favorite prompt is, what was your silver lining for the day? So something went terribly. What's the silver lining of that
yeah.
terrible situation? And that has really helped me like change my mindset a bit about like, oh, okay, this went wrong today, but this resulted like this gave me an opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah.
So try and put a positive spin on things. And I think that has helped me at least from like a mental health perspective. but the tendency to check Slack at like 10, 11 p.m. before I go to bed, or like just respond to something real
Do it.
quick. My team's really good about calling me out for it. Like they'll be like, so she says at 11:47 p.m. Because like most of them are in the US, so they know I'm over here and they're like, what are you doing? And they call me out for it. I'm like, okay, they are so right. I will schedule send this message next time, you know? So like for me, I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, I don't want to be stressed out, but I don't also want to like demonstrate that this is an expectation, right? That people should be
Yeah.
checking their stuff before they go to bed and as soon as they wake up.
Yeah. And I also do it for other reasons, right? Like when you have kids, you have to put them to bed, make dinner, do story time, bath time, bedtime. And then it's, 9:30, 10 p.m. at night. And I'm like, okay, I have some time. That time should be maybe spent, watching The Crown on Netflix. But, that is the time that I'm like, okay, I have some, headspace, and maybe I'll write back to a few emails and a few messages. But what I
Yeah.
love, so at Reach Desk, our founder, Alex, whenever there's a lot happening, or whenever he senses, stress, or taking on, too many things, the one thing he tells me, and I love this, is, Malvina, we're not saving lives. And I'm like, oh, when you say it like that, just puts everything into perspective. We're not saving lives. We're not performing, heart surgery. It may
Yeah.
feel like it is heart surgery at times, but I
Yeah.
think having that in the back of your mind is important.
Yeah. You guys are sending gifts,
I
which is
know.
right.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I think perspective is always going to be super helpful in this. But so I think that's a wrap for the episode. But for those of you who are listening, we will link to the report in our LinkedIn posts and our YouTube comments. Check us out where you guys now subscribe to your podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, where else now?
Google.
Google. We've grown up. We've released the podcast as a proper audio only podcast where you find your favorites. So we'll put all of that in the show notes and all that fun stuff. But great work by Sales Enablement Pro. Big kudos to Shauna and the team for this report. Clearly was enough for us to talk about on a whole episode of the Enablement Pro.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to everyone tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.